Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad to be here with you all. My name is Giovana Risco, and I'm a professor at Villarreal University. I work for Catholic University as well, and I'm really very glad to be here with you all. Well, I think we have friends from different parts of the world, so let me tell you where we are. We are here in Lima, Peru. We are at the American Embassy. And, well, today it's a sunny afternoon. It's really nice weather here in Lima. So, let's see. We're going to start working on our workshop today, and I would really like to share all this information with you all. Yes? Well, the topic that we're going to work on today, it's becoming a reflective teacher. Okay? All of us love teaching. That's why we're into this field, into this teaching field, right? It's our passion. So what it's really needed for us is to reflect a little bit on things that we should do as good teachers. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be reflecting on things that we as teachers do. We're going to reflect also on the importance of choosing good activities, appropriate activities for our students, right, for them to enjoy. So today we have the theoretical part, which is like this kind of interaction with you at first, and then at the end we will be working on some activities, giving you the chance of putting these activities into practice. Yes? Okay, so becoming a reflective teacher. Let's get started. We're going to go to our first slide now. Let's see. It's going to come. And, well, you will see in a minute. That's the first one. So what you are seeing here, friends, it's something that we all reflect on. This topic, human beings, right? As human beings, well, there is a G missing, just in case it's as human beings. We always reflect on things that we all have in common. Like, for example, the first picture on the left, which is the family. We always are concerned about our families. The second picture represents friendship, right? That is friendship. The third picture, love, which is very important. In fact, love, I think, is one of the words that implies a lot of things, right? It's not only loving our family, our friends, but also loving what we do, having a passion for things that we do, which is the next picture. Our careers, our jobs, right? Working on, loving what we do as teachers. So that is, as people, we always reflect on these things. But let's go to the next slide, because in the next slide, what we will see is what we as teachers need to reflect on. And that is a question that I want to ask you. What topics do we as teachers usually reflect on? We have here 4 pictures, yeah? And I want you to try to tell me what they illustrate about our teaching, because these are pictures that show somehow things that we are always concerned about. So we have to reflect on these things. If there's a chance for you, if you can type what you think what each picture represents, I would really appreciate it. And I will be reading here your comments, your answers. Yes? So I don't know if I can probably get any of the answers. Okay, I'm going to wait for some of them. Yeah. And meanwhile, I will be telling you what we have in the first picture. Well, I have, just in case, I'm going to read the people that I have here, which are connected, are online. We have Alfredo Giraldo. Hi, Alfredo. I don't know where you are from, but we're here in Lima, Peru. I also can see, okay, I also can see someone else who is Ricardo, I can see Ricardo as well. Well, let's go over our first picture. Yes, we have here the content. You see that teacher carrying out all that, that amount of books she has. It's because we're always concerned about the content, the knowledge that we need to have to give to our students. The second picture illustrates what? Well, upgrading probably, right? As professionals, we think of getting upgraded, right? Getting promoted. Probably little by little we get to teach different levels, and that is also part of our growing as a teacher, right? The third picture illustrates what we should be concerned about, which are who are our students, right? They are definitely the first ones that we should care about. So we have our students, and the fourth picture, it's something that we all teachers do. It's illustrating what? What do you see in that fourth picture? Our planning. Planning and working on working on what are we going to teach to our students, what things do we have to choose for our classes, and those things, that is something that all of us do in our teaching career, right? Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And this time, what you will have is a little task, yeah? I want you to reflect on our own teaching, your own teaching. This time, we're going to think of a simile for a teacher's role, okay? I'm going to give you an example first, and I need you to think of different similes we can have for a teacher's role. For example, I can say, the teachers are like chefs. Teachers are like chefs? Why? Can somebody ask? Well, when we begin teaching, definitely all of us were like the first time chefs had to prepare something. They need their recipe book. What for? To see the ingredients, to follow the procedures for the preparation of the dish. And that's what we as teachers probably did at the very beginning, right? We needed our teacher's guides. We followed the suggestions that we read in the teacher's book, and that was really important to us. But little by little, chefs create their own dishes. They start coming up with their own recipes, and that is what we as teachers always do. We also come up throughout experience, probably we come up with new ideas. We can adapt the recipe that was probably meant for, I don't know, for a kind of audience, let's say. And for our students, we have to change and adapt that kind of information to different kind of students. So teachers are like chefs. That is the first simile. What other things can a teacher's role be compared to? So that is the task for you guys. I want you to give me different ideas or different similes for a teacher's role. My example was a teacher is like a chef. I told you why. Now, can you tell me, please? I'm going to wait for some responses, and let's see if we can probably read some. Oh, great, Gonzalo Fortune. Gonzalo said that teachers are like big brothers. That's really nice, Gonzalo. Thank you for the answer. And you're right, because big brothers support the others, right? And that's what teachers do with the students. Very good. Dalton from Cajamarca. Welcome, Cajamarca. Well, Dalton says that teachers are like the big brothers as well. Okay, same idea. Good, right? And Gonzalo's writing, I think he's typing. Carmen Rosa is also, it's also online. Carmen Rosa said that teachers are like drivers. How interesting, Carmen Rosa. I'm trying to think of why you think teachers are like drivers. I think that teachers drive the way they want to take their students, right? Where they want to take them. And you are really right, because we lead them to go wherever we want them to go. So teachers are like drivers. Thank you, guys. Now, let's go to the next slide to see what other similes we can have. This is something that also some other teachers some other times told me. Teacher, or a good teacher, is like a psychologist. Definitely, we all agree on that. Who hasn't had an experience of students asking you to solve some problems they have, probably they ask you for suggestions. So we are like psychologists to them. Teachers are like doctors, right? Doctors diagnose at first to know what to prescribe, and that is what what we as teachers do. We have to diagnose first what, the level of our students, how they are doing in classes, to know what kind of prescription, what kind of medicine to give them, where to reinforce, what to do with them, right? So teachers are like doctors. And the last one, the last picture is a firefighter. No? Oh, let me just read what Jenny from Lima also wrote, that yes, teachers are like psychologists, and that is right, right? Oh, Dalton also said that teachers are like a convenience store. You can find everything there. That's really nice. So, because our students need to feel that they can go with us and they can really find whatever they need being with us, right? Thank you, Dalton, for your comment. But firefighters, teachers are like firefighters. And that is something that brings kind of controversy, because we say firefighters. Why? Well, you know why? Because as teachers, we need to do something. Let's go to the next slide for us to read the keyword. Yeah. And firefighters, what they do? Look at this part. Teachers sometimes need to put out the fire of textbook boredom. So we need to be in a creative mindset to be most energized. And it's really true, right? Sometimes we get our textbook, it's boring, we don't know what to do, our students probably don't like the topic, and we need to do something for them not to get bored. And that is why teachers are like firefighters, putting out fires as well, right? Well, so now there's another question for you. Let's go to the next slide. And it is showing what engaging work, the characteristics, or in your point of view, what are the characteristics of a good teacher? I'm going to show you the next slide where you will see different pictures which illustrate different kind of characteristics for us as teachers. Look at these pictures and probably you can type what you think each of these pictures represent. The first one is the one which is up on top on the left. You see a heart. So what you think it illustrates about teachers? The second picture, it's a heart with headphones, right? So if you can type what you think each of these pictures illustrate about teaching, I would really appreciate it. Meanwhile, I think, I'm going to read Rosaluz Salazar's answer for the previous simile. She said that teachers are like tailors. That's really nice as well. Yes. And for this slide, we're going to go over the answers already. Yeah? And probably you can keep on writing and typing your ideas. Let's go to the next slide where we have the answers. Okay. Here, as answers we have, look at the first picture. There's a heart. Teachers should care about the students' needs. As we said, like psychologists, we need to be like them. The second picture, teachers should listen to their students' concerns. Always, we have to be with our ears open to them. The third picture, a gymnast. We need to be flexible, right? Flexible because, we need to adapt ourselves, not only our likes and our preferences, but we need to be flexible enough to adapt to our students' needs, our students' likes. I'm reading just in case what Franco said about teachers. It says teachers should care about every single problem in his or her class. Thank you, Franco, for the answer. The picture that you see where there's a man jumping, it's illustrating the motivation, but teachers should be motivated ourselves. We should be motivated ourselves. How come we're going to motivate our students if we're not motivated ourselves? So we need to be motivated first. And something that we always ask our students to have, disciplined, right? But we ourselves should be disciplined, first of all, because we need to know what procedures to follow, what to do, all the time being disciplined to ourselves. And definitely the last picture, which says concept and definition, illustrates the knowledge. We should know the material well. Definitely we are always in the learning process, so we might not know all the things that probably are in the textbooks. But what we know is that we should get prepared in advance. So before getting to our classes, definitely we need to know the material we're going to teach, right? Perfect. Okay. And then we can go now to the next slide, okay, where we have a question for you all guys. Now, if we said that teachers should be flexible enough, we should adapt, we should get adapted to our students' needs. The question is, how can we adapt our activities? Sometimes activities that we have in the textbooks which are not probably appealing to our students, they might not like those activities, but how can we turn them to be really engaging activities? Okay, so the question is, what kind of work or activities do you find totally engaging? Okay, and which kind of activities do you hate, you don't like doing probably? Because if we think about that, we might be in our students' shoes as well. No? So we might think about the things that they like or they might not like. Yeah? Any answers probably? Can we elicit some responses? Probably in a few words you can tell us what kind of activities are engaging, are motivating, our students might like. I'll give you an example. Activities should probably they should stimulate curiosity is one of the answers, right? Activities should activity should have a topic which can be appealing to our students. And if the topic is given by the book, probably activities should be adapted to our students' likes. Somehow we can turn the activity into a, more motivating one. Yeah? Let's go to the next slide to see the characteristics for engaging work. Look at this one. Engaging work stimulates curiosity. It's one of the answers we said. Engaging work permits us to express our creativity. Students love when you let them do, when you let them create and come up with ideas. Engaging work makes us think, reason. It's something that we are good at. If they feel they're good at doing something, definitely they will like the activity. It's challenging, right? And engaging work also fosters positive relationships. Whenever you have group work, pair work, there are these kind of activities where, well, depending on multiple intelligences, definitely, our kinesthetic students, our interpersonal students will definitely develop this kind of relationships, so they will like this kind of activities. On the other hand, we have characteristics for kind of work that we hate. Let's go to the next slide. So, what is a kind of work that we hate to do? We don't like to do what? Something which is repetitive. Who likes repeating and repeating? I mean, we're not talking about pronunciation. No? We're working on activities. So when activities are repetitive, they probably will get our students bored. We hate, students also hate something which is boring, something which requires little or no thought. So activities need to be challenging as well. Yeah? And when we force on them, when they are forced, to do something, definitely they won't like working on that. So we need to have in mind those things to work on our next slide. Okay? And the next one is activity design questions. Okay, I need you guys now, you all friends, I need you to have in mind, so what questions would you have in mind when designing activities for your students? Okay, let's suppose you have to design an activity, or probably you have to choose, you have an alternative of different alternatives of activities, and you need to choose for one of them. But which one, what do you need to have in mind? What kind of questions would you need to have in mind to choose activities for your students? Okay. Carmen Rosa Caseda said that activities should be connected to the student's environment so that they are meaningful to them. Yes, thank you, Carmencita, for the answer. Activities should be meaningful. That way they will be memorable, right? That is a good answer. Aha, Franco gave us an idea, and Franco said, what's your favorite idea? Mine's being creative. Oh, yes, definitely. Being creative is something that um, we need to focus on, right? So if we said that we don't want them to get bored, we need to be creative all the time. Okay, we're gonna wait for some other responses probably. Okay, and we can go over the next slide where we have some other ideas, some other questions. We can the next one, please. The next one where we can get to ask ourselves. Perfect. Get to ask ourselves about this kind of questions. Well, I want you to to pay attention to number 3, which is really probably something that we all have in mind. The input, the kind of input that will be provided. Are we working on which kind of skill? Reading, listening, speaking? Is it a video, a situation, audio discussion? And definitely the kind of topic would be related to this. You would choose appropriate topic, but the activity will probably reinforce each of the skills. Or sometimes we can have activities where skills can be integrated, right? And that is really good too. And question number 6, which is also nice. It says, what resources will be needed? Sometimes we think of creative things we can do, we want to do with our students, but the problem is we need a lot of material. We need to take them probably out of the classroom or out of the school, and sometimes it's not allowed to take them out. So we always have to be aware with the resources we might need before doing something in our class, right? So resources are also important. Let me read what Gonzalo Fortune said, and he said, what do my students enjoy doing? Thank you, Gonzalo. That's a good question we need to have in mind, what they like to do, right? And Dalton says, physical activities. Good. If they enjoy being involved into physical activities, especially the ones who are kinesthetic. No? Kinesthetic students love to work on physical activities. And, there is no name, but it says Invitado 644. That's the name I've got here. And he says, a teacher should reflect on homework. Okay, yeah, as a follow-up. No, sometimes we have activities for follow-up, and homework is a good chance for doing this. So, good, because what we said is that we always have different kind of things to have in mind when designing activities, when preparing our activities, right? Now, let's go to our next slide, where we have this is like summarizing what we need for a good activity. Yeah, good activities should have a time limit. Definitely, we cannot tell them, okay, it's up to you. You take whatever the time you need. No, there should always be a time limit, so they know that there is a beginning and there is an end for the activity. The second one on the right, it says contain a problem-solving element. Tasks, usually, right? When we give them tasks to work on, they need to go over a process and then they will get results, and that's good. So they contain a problem-solving element. Activities should focus on meaning, right? So the form, the grammar, we want to reinforce, we want them to practice. Activities should have in mind that. The goal, what is our goal, our aim? Right? Activities should have a given goal to reach, exactly what we said before, and reflect real life. This last point is important, guys, because when we have students do things which reflect real life situations, activities or the exercise becomes memorable, right? They will remember that, and the information will be meaningful. First meaningful, and then it will be memorable. Okay. Okay. There is a question here that Franco asks. let me read it to everybody, and it says, let's say there is a trouble between two students and they won't agree to work together. What would you do? Good question. You know, there is always a time when two students do not work, especially, I don't know if you have had that experience, but when you have a mixed ability class, sometimes boys and girls, or sometimes different kind of, there are different kinds of students in terms of likes, right? So if there's a time that they don't want to work, probably if it's the first time they do that, well, we can give them the chance of working with somebody else. But the thing is that, you know, it's difficult when you assign and when you tell them, okay, you two work together, fulanito and fulanita, you two work together, please. Then you give them the chance of saying, no, miss, I don't want to work with him, with her. And that is a problem. But you can assign couples or groups without pointing at them, without choosing your students to work together. How? You can probably have word cards, okay? We're answering Franco's question, right? Franco, you can prepare word cards where probably, for example, no, one student has the number, pretty simple, 2 plus 2 in numbers, 2 plus 2, and another card with the answer, 4. And like that, you can have different numbers. So the problem and the answer. Then you shuffle them, you give each student a card. They don't know who they are going to work with, and they are supposed to go and look for the person who matches his or her card, right? And they have to work together. So you didn't give them the chance of saying, no, miss, I don't want to work with him or with her, because it was their chance of, well, it was at random that they chose their couples. These kind of cards are very practical, Franco. And you can have numbers, you can have colors. Once I remember I wrote something like red and yellow, and the result is orange, no? So red and yellow and orange. And they have to find and to match their partners, yeah? It's an idea. Well, okay. So far, we've gone over characteristics of different kind of activities. We've gone over things that we have to reflect on by ourselves first as teachers, and then about the activities. Let me read what Dalton from Cajamarca said. He said that goals are very important and students should be aware of them. Definitely, Dalton. We said the objectives, the goals, they have to know what they're doing, right? And we as teachers need to know what we want them to practice to reinforce that, right? Invitado 644 said, a teacher is like a father or mother because they care about the students who are like their sons. Oh, yes, definitely we become like parents, you know, to our students somehow. Okay? And Zoraida, hello Zoraida, I think it's the first answer that I read from you. Zoraida said that students have to learn a life skill, not only the language. Good. That's why the last characteristic you see on the slide says reflect real life, right? So, as you said, Zoraida, right? As you said, we have to make them work on real life situations, no? What they will do at any time of their lives. That is something meaningful to them. Perfect. Good. So far we've seen all the characteristics, and now we're gonna put them into practice. Yes? So let's go to the next slide, because we all have a task, and we're gonna go over some of the next one, please, where we will go over the activities by ourselves. Let's see how they work. So a task for us. Let's work on the following activities, and let's think about how reflective they are. Okay? So I'm going to show you some of the activities I've prepared for you, and then we're going to reflect on all the characteristics we've mentioned, and we're going to see how good they are, how meaningful they might be to our students. But first, let me read what somebody else wrote here. Invitado 429 said, I think the best way is to work cards. it is more interactive. Oh yeah, well, as I told you, right? Having the cards interactive is good. As we said, they match their they find their partners without us choosing them. No. Then Delmer Fuller said students should be given clear expectations before an activity. If the activity will be graded, a rubric of the expectation should be provided and reviewed before beginning the activity. Thank you very much. Yes, it's really a good tip, right? So they have to know what they will be getting, if it's a grade, if it's probably a contest, if they're getting points. So it's really good that in advance they know what they will be given, right? So to have clear expectations, as our friend here said. Franco wrote, about the time, I think it's all right to have a time limit, but not a short time, because this is not about a race. It is about showing the knowledge we know. Definitely, it all depends on the kind of activity, right? Because if we have a contest, if it's probably a kind of game-like activity, we might have some kind of short time given, but it's at the same time productive. But if it's for productive stages, definitely we need to allow them more time for for practicing, for speaking, no? Invitado 644 says, a good teacher needs to have a great heart. Yes, that's really good. That's why we had one of the illustrations, a big heart, no? Saying that teachers should care about students. Thank you, guys. Zoraida wrote, says, about the time, I think what the most of the students have finished the activity, we can stop them. Okay, yes, we can set the time for them to have clearly in mind how long they might be working on that activity. Well, let's see. Let's go to the next slide now, and we will present one of the first activities we have here for you to work on. This is comparatives and superlatives. Okay, comparatives and superlatives. All of us have worked with this topic, which is kind of basic, right? But this is what will be done in class. So you can have this kind of circle, this kind of chart on the board, and you have these words: fish, lion, crocodile, dove, tiger, and monkey, right? What students will do is the following. You will tell them, okay, you can either have them work individually or probably in pairs or in groups. I think in groups is more motivating because it could be done as a contest, yeah? So it's a game-like activity. You divide your students in groups of threes, So they're working with two other partners, okay? And you tell them, okay, guys, it's time for you to come up with different sentences comparing these words you have here one to the other, but following the sense of the arrows. For example, fish to lion, lion to crocodile, crocodile with a dove, and so on, right? The dove with a tiger, tiger with a monkey. For example, guys, okay, let's do this together. Let's say that, okay, as a elicitation this time, yeah? In our real class, we will have them go in order from the beginning till the end. But this time, just to model, let's see, tiger with monkey. I need the answer, please. I need a sentence to compare a tiger with a monkey. Okay, I'm going to wait for the first answer. A tiger with a monkey. Teresita Silva said, it is good interactive. Yes, having interaction, it's needed, right? A good teacher should encourage their students on different ways, says Invitado 45. Guess 45. Good, thank you. Well, tiger with a monkey. Okay, it says, a tiger is bigger than a monkey. That's right. A tiger is bigger than a monkey. A monkey and a fish. A monkey and a fish. What can we say about a monkey and a fish? Fish eats lion. Got it? Fish eats lion. No, the idea is to compare the fish with the lion. So I might say, a fish is smaller than a lion. A lion is braver than a crocodile, or is faster than a crocodile. A crocodile is what? It's more dangerous than a dove. Well, a dove is not dangerous at all, right? So the idea is that they come up with, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sentences, yeah? And you have to tell them that each adjective should be different. They cannot repeat the adjectives. Then it's time for you to say, okay, stop. You can assign time, right? You can give them time, and they say, okay, 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, the group which writes the most sentences might be the winner, probably, right? Or probably then you can go backwards. So once they've done the first row like this, right? They can go to the other way around. They can go fish and monkey, monkey and tiger. So before we said a tiger is bigger than a monkey. Yes, but a monkey is funnier than a tiger. And that could be one, right? And tiger and a dove, right? So they keep on comparing on the other way around the clock this time. And the idea is to keep on using different adjectives. So all in all, at the end of the activity, they might have probably used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 backwards, so 12 different sentences. This could be written, or probably this could be oral practice, right? Because you can elicit from 2 different groups, and you can assign points to group A and group B. If they give a correct answer, assign point to them. If the other group gives a good answer, point to the others. Or the first group which raises the hand and which volunteers gets the point. Okay, so that's the idea. At the end, you have a lot of practice on comparatives in this case. And then it's a superlatives, because after having worked on these comparisons and comparatives, you tell them, okay, now we're going to choose one of them and say a superlative for this word. For example, doves. Doves, what? Okay, the dove is what? The quietest of all the animals, right? The lion is the most dangerous, right? So at the end, they can come up for a superlative for each of the words that they are given here. So that way, you are practicing on comparatives and practicing on superlatives. Susanna wrote the answer and says, a tiger is stronger than a monkey. Yes. And guest 163 says that, finally he was able to log in. And he said, a dove is smaller than a monkey. Yes, thank you. Those are the answers we said, right? So, that is a good way. Now, this is an example, guys. Some other topics that can probably be here used could be famous people, right? If you have any other ideas, you can write to me, please. You can type. And which other topics? Because here the example is with animals. I said famous people could be used as well. And then we're going to reflect, okay? We're going to reflect on the characteristics of this activity by itself. So you can also go thinking about the characteristics of this activity, okay? Laura, are they able to see me? Laura, are they able to see me here? Yes, oh yes, okay. So, okay, sorry guys, I just wanted to make sure, because what I wanted to do with you is to reflect on this activity by itself. If we think of the theory that we said at first, there was a time limit, there's a lot of production, either written production or probably spoken language if we elicit from them. There is an objective, which is in this case to practice comparatives and superlatives. So definitely we have good characteristics in this activity, okay? I hope you like this one. Now let's go to the next one. We have one more, which I've done in class many times, is really motivating. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, it's really motivating, And I mean, it can work with different other topics. Yeah. The the name of the game, of the activity, like, is how many things can you think of? Okay. And this is what you will do. You write this question on the board. How many things can you think of that? But previously you have divided your class in groups again. Groups of 3s or groups of 4s. Okay? So each group needs a sheet of paper. A sheet of paper with a pen or a pencil. And you write on the board, how many things can you think of that? And write one characteristic. For example, are round. How many things can you think of that are round? And a number, for example, 6. It means that in their groups, they need to come up with 6 words with that characteristic. So, if the question is, how many things can you think of that are round? They will probably write, for example, you can, okay, let's do it together. You can now write to me, you can type to me, how many things can you think of that are round? I give you an example. A clock. A clock could be round, right? What else? What else? A coin. Good. A clock, a coin. What else? Things which are round. The sun. Good, the sun. Okay? So, this is the idea. When one group finishes the 6 words that you told them, the group needs to say, stop, stop. So, you don't stop the activity by that time. You need to wait for the other group that finishes in the second place, because then when you check the first group's answers, if there is a mistake, you go to the other group, the second group which finished second place, right? And you go checking and checking. So with this question, you can have, how many things can you think of that are round, that are squared? How many things can you think of that men like, but women don't? How many things can you think of that women hate, but men love doing, right? How many things can you think of that, and if you want to work on comparatives, continue. How many things can you think of that are bigger than a building? How many things can you think of that are smaller than a coin? So it really gives them the chance of together thinking of words. They're working on vocabulary. They're, first of all, they're talking about their options, then they're writing their answers, you see? So they're having good chances of practicing, okay? And it's a contest, so it's competitive. They like contests. Definitely you gave each group a number or a name, and if they get the point after checking, if they won, and then you checked and all the answers were correct, they get their point. And you write on the board. Group 1, 1 point. Let's continue with the other one. No? Okay, group 2 got the second point, and so on. The group which gets to the third point, let's say, is the winner. Is the winner in this case. Okay? So, okay, if we reflect on this kind of activity, okay, we need, what were the characteristics of this activity? Was there a time limit? Yes, because you gave them a number of words they needed to write. You said 6, 5, no? So they need to write only 5 words with that characteristic you told them. So there is a time limit. There is interaction. There is integration of skills. They're speaking, they're writing, they're listening to each other, right? It's motivating because it's competitive. It's a contest. They might like doing this. And at the end, it could be rewarding because if there is a group which was the winner, you can give them, I don't know, chocolates, candies, right? So it's something that they will love probably getting at the end of the activity, okay? Oh, let me read some of the other answers. Alfredo Giraldo, welcome because he joined us. And Franco says, that's a very good way of practicing vocabulary. Oh, thank you, Franco. Yes, I'm really glad you like the activity. This one is really good. to tell you the truth, I've done it many times, and it is even a good way of warming them up, or probably at the end of a lesson as reinforcing vocabulary. And it's very general. You can have different topics. It's only a matter of thinking what characteristics you can give them, right? And it all depends on what you are doing with them, the topic you are dealing with them in class. Okay, so that is our second activity. Let's go to the next slide. And I think we have some time. No, next one, please. The coffee potting activity. Okay. Okay. This will be focused on practicing form. Okay, so we need to practice verb tenses. Remember, verb tenses. Now, these are the instructions, guys. Coffee pot is going to be the verb. Coffee potting, coffee pot is the verb. So, what you will do is the following. Okay. One student will come out to the front of the class. Yeah? And you, as a teacher, you will give the student on a piece of paper an activity. For example, travel by bus. On a piece of paper, the student in the front of the class will read, travel by bus. The idea is that all his partners will have to ask him questions to trying to find out which activity he has got. So, in the questions, they will have to use coffee pot as a verb because they don't know what is a verb. They don't know what is the activity. So, students will go on saying things like this. Remember, the word or the activity was travel by bus, right? So, the partners will say, how often do you coffee pot? And the student will say, almost every day. Somebody else will say, do you always coffee pot? And the student will say, I think from Monday to Friday. Somebody else will say, have you ever coffee potted at home? No, I haven't, is the answer. Right? Somebody will say, will you coffee pot tomorrow? Yes, I will. Do you get the idea? So the thing is that by asking questions in different tenses using the verb coffee pot, they will have to guess which is the activity that you gave to the student who is in the front. So at the end, you can probably have, if nobody guesses, you can recall on the answers with the whole class. Now you can say, okay guys, let's see, let's remember what he said. He said that he will coffee pot tomorrow. He said that he has never coffee potted at home. He said that he usually coffee pots from Monday to Friday. Blah, blah, blah. What do you think it is? Somebody might say, coffee pot. Is coffee pot travel by bus? Go by bus? Yes, it is. Right? And that is the answer. Okay? So, this could be done with different verbs, with different activities. And it's also a good way to warm them up. Probably, I don't know, could be as a warm up for previously, before reading an activity, before reading a text. So, if the text is about commuting, imagine you have this activity with the verb traveling or going by bus, and it's a good warm-up for the activity, right? If there is a reading, which topic is probably what? Health, no? Something related to health. The word that you give to the student could be related to something of the text, and this activity will be done as a warm-up for the test. Okay? So, if we reflect on this activity, what we have? We have a goal, which is very defined, practicing verb tenses. There's speaking, right? There's lots of speaking. If you give them probably time to work together in pairs before eliciting for their answers, it's a good way also of working on this, right? And at the end, if you have them guess in pairs and try to recall on the things that were said before they guessed, there is also good practice for speaking time, right? So it's really a very productive activity. Let me read some of the answers we're getting here. And Zoraida said, it's a way of informal assessment. Yes, definitely. You are assessing them and giving them the answers, correcting them, right? Little by little. Indirectly, right? They are not being evaluated, but you are giving them this chance. Franco said the student might be shy. Well, in fact, the one who is going to be at the front, if you choose that student, you might need to choose one student that is really smart, by doing these kind of things, right? And the shy students might be there in the audience with their partners, probably, working on the questions to ask to the student who is in the front. So there's no problem with shy students working this, yeah? Okay, guys, that was the other activity, coffee potting activity. And now let's go to the next activity, the next and the last one, the next slide, which is song story building. This is really nice because what I need you to do, because you will be the students right now, okay? So you all will need to have a piece of paper where you are taking your notes, and these are the instructions, okay? Me as a teacher, I'm in the class, and I will say, okay, guys, listen, on your sheet of paper, you are gonna write this. Write this, please. Once upon a time, there was a. Again, once upon a time, there was a. Okay. And now you will keep on writing. You will continue writing, but you will get inspired by listening to some pieces of songs. So I'm going to play some songs, and you will have to keep on writing your story based on the feeling, on the mood that you get by listening to these songs. Okay? So let's try doing this. Okay, guys, so remember, once upon a time, there was a what? Okay, I'm going to take this out for a while to play the music so you can listen to this, yes? Okay, keep on writing, huh? I hope you can listen to this. Remember, you are writing. Well, in a real class, it will take longer, right? So, I'll need to go to the next one. Keep on writing, huh? Keep on writing. This is the next one. And now you write the ending, write the conclusion of your story. Well, okay, so that's the idea. By this time, in a real class, definitely you would have had longer time for each piece of music. Okay, let's stop. So definitely you might have had longer time for each piece of music, so you give them time to write. This was just a demonstration, not for you to have the feeling of what the activity would be like. Okay, but if you notice, so it went, according to the music you chose, it went from, I don't know, a love story to a science fiction story, and then it was probably a horror story, and at the end, probably there was a happy ending. It all depending on what they were listening to, okay? So here, there was lots of writing. Definitely the skill practiced was writing, right? But then at the end, there will be reading, because you can have them read to each other their stories, right? Probably you can have you can have them compare and talk about how they liked their story, their speaking. So all these skills can be integrated as well. Thank you very much, Mars. You said that you really liked the activity. Oh, that's really good, right? Okay. Well, as concluding, guys, the conclusions here, we can say that learning is more effective when students take active role in the learning process. And through all these activities, definitely we saw them putting into practice things, right? They were active learners in this case. We should develop the students' ability to do things by themselves. And in all the activities here, they did things by themselves. You were just guiding them on working by themselves. And remember, do less teaching and let them learn, let them practice. The more they practice, the more they will learn. Okay, guys? Well, just I want to finish this talk by reflecting on something. I found this thought, and I wanted to share it with you all. The next one, please. And it says that a good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. And it's really what we need to have in mind, right? Whatever we do, whatever our students can take from us, even if we are tired, if we have problems, whatever the way it is that we feel, but if we do everything for our students, they will really get benefit from that. So let's always reflect on the kind of teaching we're giving our students. Let's reflect on the activities we prepare for them. And well, it was really a pleasure for me to have shared this information with you all. And thank you very much. My name is Giovana Risco, and I hope, well, to meet you sometime. All of you, all the guys who were here online. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Bye.